Today's episode, we're going to talk about Peter Quil, or you might know him as Starlord.
Who?
Starlord, man. Legendary space outlaw. So, a quick breakdown of our character Starlord. So basically, he sees his mother die of brain cancer at the young age of 8 and runs away from the hospital and gets abducted by some crazy blue alien people. I kind of equate it to being placed into foster care because you're getting placed out of the family system you're accustomed to. You're going into an environment which is radically different than the one you're previously accustomed to. So in this case, Starlord was accustomed to living on Earth and doing our earthly things, and now being thrust in the world of the Ravengers. And before that, I can only imagine, the psychological trauma that Starlord has undergone, growing up without a father. Growing up without a father makes a child more likely to have a low self-esteem and to garner aggressive behaviors and tendencies. So I think in this case, this kind of carryovers to Starlord's life in a little bit, because in the beginning we see Starlord's mother say to Starlord, hey, are you picking fights again?
Why have you been fighting with the other boys again, baby?
And this is important because, right off the bat, it shows you that Starlord, has a history of getting into fights. So this isn't the first time that Starlord has gotten into fights with other children. So I speculate whether getting into fights in school has something to do with not having a father. And going back to the point of, children who don't have a father are more likely to have a low self-esteem. Put yourself in his shoes. Maybe you're walking in the park and, you're with your mother and you see all these other kids, walking with their mom and dad. And maybe to yourself you're saying, hey, what if I had it? Why don't I have that? Why don't I have my dad, walk with me and my mom? Especially, you see in the beginning of the film, Starlord's mother mentions that his dad is an angel.
You're so like your daddy. You even look like him. And he was an angel.
So I can only imagine maybe Starlord in his mind saying, if my dad's such an angel, how come he's not here? And maybe, is there something wrong with me?
How come he don't want me, man?
So I want to talk about the important role that music has played in the movie as well. So because Starlord's mom dies at an early age, and because his life at home is suddenly, literally, gone like that, music for him is sort of a representation of how that old life was, or just a representation of his mom. I read an interesting article in, I think, Psych today. I'll be sure to include it in the link of this video. That basically says that objects are they can be a representation of ourselves. If you can look behind me, I have a lot of figures of MMA fighters and a lot of movies in the back. So that is kind of a representation of who I am. So in a way, the Walkman for Starlord is a representation and extension of not only his past life in Earth, but also his mother. And also James Gunn, the director, does such a good job in having the music represent sort of Starlord's emotional growth during the film. We can see in the beginning of the movie, he's listening to I'm Not in Love by 10cc. The music's lyrics, it kind of, they signify, if you read deeply into it, they tell a story about this man who's telling a woman he's not in love. He's singing, just because I call you up, just because I hang a picture on my wall, doesn't mean I'm necessarily in love with you. Now, for me, I'm taking a leap and saying that perhaps this signifies sort of Starlord, not recognizing that his mom has died. Maybe like in the song, just because my mom has brain cancer doesn't mean that she's dead. So maybe James Gunn, included that song in order to kind of represent his emotional turbulence in a way, not recognizing that his mother is gonna die, ignoring the incredibly emotional, traumatic event that is happening. And as I don't blame him. What's so cool and what's hooked me in this movie is sort of the bond that Starlord has with music. And one of the signature scenes that I think of as a viewer, and the scene that maybe got me hooked, was the scene where the Pina Colada scene, where our heroes, they Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, and Starlord, all escaped from the prison, but Starlord left his Walkman, and the guy is just listening to the Walkman, and Starlord comes back for it.
If you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain.
And the song, Pina Colada, is playing in the background, and I think this is such a brilliant song to put in this scene, because the song is about these two lovers who've gone kind of weary of each other. They write a local ad in the newspaper, looking for other partners, and funny enough, they read each other's ad and meet each other in a bar. So it kind of, for me, that song kind of represents that, even though we might get tired of our significant other, or get tired of each other, we are sort of still linked in some way to that person. And I think James Gunn did a phenomenal job in including that in the movie to sort of signify and sort of indicate to the viewers that music is something that is going to be it's in Star-Lord's life in one way or another, with the Pina Colada song. So we see Star-Lord's character grow as the film goes on, because he sort of gets his, although kooky, they have all their idiosyncrasies, he sort of grows his family, from Drax, who takes things too literal, Rocket, the crazy, guy with guns, the little raccoon, he sort of gains his family, and with that, he sort of replaces what he kind of missed growing up, that sense of family, that sense of belonging, because he grew up without a father, and because he was whisked away by, the Ravagers at such an early age. So yeah, at the end of the movie, we see Starlord, sort of make up for some of those imbalances, which is, really awesome, as a viewer. In the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, Starlord's arc, comes full circle, because in as we can see in the scene where the Guardians are fighting Thanos, and they kind of steal the Infinity Stone from him, and they're all trying to so Gamora is shouting to Starlord, hold my hand, because they're trying to fend off the effects of the Infinity Stone. And this harks back to the beginning scene where Starlord's mother, tells Starlord to, hold my hand, reaching out. And unlike in the beginning, Starlord, holds Gamora's hand. For me, this kind of symbolizes, Starlord making peace that his mother died, and I can only imagine, some of the guilt he felt not grabbing onto his mother's hand, knowing that that was one of her final moments. So the movie does an excellent job in harking back to that first scene and making Star-Lord's character arc a complete circle. In the end of the first movie, he opens a letter from his mom, including the second mixtape, and it says,
You are the light of my life, my precious son, my little Star-Lord.
As an audience, we learn that Star-Lord has taken that name, as taking that name because of his mother. And for me, that's one of the greatest signs of, how much he loves his mother. So that's it for Star-Lord's analysis. For the first movie, at least. Stay tuned for part 2 of when I come back to this. So, catch you later.